Sorry, I deleted all the files you told me to delete. My job was to design and write software prototypes for individual high-value customers. If they liked it well enough, then a real software engineering team would build the real product. Occasionally, I would run the prototype for a few months while the customer evaluated if they wanted to buy the real project. Now these prototypes are not a lot of code, but they do run with a lot of data. Even compressed, it can be a terabyte or more. Having done this work for years, I've accumulated a small disk farm of past projects, which can be very useful when a customer asks for something just like we did last year, but with a small change or two. The company resisted buying hard drives for this, but it saves me so much time. I ended up buying 1 or 2 a year myself until I accumulated about 10 of them. Figure over $1,000 worth of external drives. Then unexpectedly management changes. New management thinks they can replace old software guy with a cheaper new software grad and I am laid off, with 2 weeks to train my replacement. Yes, it's blatant age discrimination, but impossible to fight, so I just went for a graceful transition to my next job. Except, I have $1,000 of personal disk drives with old customer data on them. Company insists that no ex-employees may take any company data off premises and all files must be deleted. I don't want to just leave the drives at the company, but they insist I must delete all data before taking them home. So I offer 1. They can buy them from me. 2. I will eventually use them for something else, but I can leave the data on them in case someone needs it. Not good enough. New manager insists I must delete all data and all backups before I remove the drives. Okay. That's what I do. 6 months later, I get a series of desperate phone calls. New software grad has been unable to build any new prototypes. Old customers are calling to get old prototypes updated, and new software grad has no idea how to do that. Executive VP is calling to ask what would it take to bring me back to do my old job. Sorry, I've got a new job now. And even if I didn't, I cannot just modify the old prototype because you insisted. I delete all old copies of it. If I did want to modify it, I'd first have to recreate it from scratch. The code still exists in their source control, but the data is the heart of the prototypes, and that old series of 6 months apart data we collected is gone for good, no matter what. Sorry, you screwed yourselves exactly like I told you would happen. Hope whatever you saved by hiring a new grad to replace an actual experienced programmer was worth it.
Now to the comments. I had a similar experience while working as a contractor. I was brought on to work on an open source platform, a Linux-based custom CMS for call center agents at a large firm. 6 months into the contract, they decide we have to integrate with a Microsoft LDAP service. I've never touched the thing before, but I give it a try. They give me some scuffed 14 GB VMware hard drive files to boot as the LDAP server instead of an actual integration, and I can't get these things to work. Of course, we have no actual source control or documentation either. I try to talk to the guy who made them and he responds to a total of 2 emails over 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks I get a call that I'm being let go from the contract because it's not a good sign that I can't get the development environment running. Never mind that I've single-handedly built 70% of their entire platform and demoed it to them 3 times along the way. So after the call is over, they send me an email giving me parting instructions, and one of the steps on the list is to delete all files related to my work immediately and that I have 24 hours to comply. Remember how I said we have no source control? Well, I follow the instructions to the letter. Format the encrypted drive I was keeping the project on. A week later the project manager calls me up, telling me they have a Git server now and I need to upload my code. I say, what are you talking about? You instructed me under threat of legal repercussions to delete those files last Tuesday. He just kinda sounds flabbergasted at that point. He tries to walk through not paying me out for my last month of work, and I say no, I have that time billed and labeled out for each thing I did. It's not my responsibility to make sure you have the deliverables you explicitly instructed me to delete. I got my check on time and never heard from them again.
How did they not have a source control system?
Haha, you think IT management is intelligent? Oh boy. Not making fun of you, they suck. Workmate's partner was in this exact scenario, training inadequate replacement, rude IMO, adding insult to injury, deleting all backups over his objections, frantic kiss-up phone call 4 months later. What would it take to get you back? I'd consider it for outrageous eye-watering figure. A few futile negotiations attempts later, they actually agreed to his figure, at which point he said thanks, as promised, I've now considered it. No.
My dad did something similar, though he wasn't laid off, just screwed over by higher-ups bypassing him in the promotion line for less qualified people, so he retired early, leaving them scrambling for replacements. Turns out they had to hire 6 people to replace his job, and retroactively give him a pay raise backdated nearly 10 years. He also told them that they'd have to be offering a 6-figure salary minimum before he goes back. They've yet to respond to that.
Shit like that happens when you're good at your job. Bosses come and go and don't really know what you do after a few rotations. Shit on your end runs smoothly so it rarely comes up, then they get complacent and think you're easily replaceable. Many moons ago I worked as an engineering liaison to marketing, writing prototypes we would demo during the BAFO phase of the proposal process. My company refused to give me access to the CM tool developers used since I was in the marketing department on the org chart. At a convention I was displaying some of my prototypes and a local competitor offered me nearly double to take the role of technical lead on one of their projects, signed the contract, and handed in my 2-week notice. On my last day IT arrived to wipe my equipment since I was no longer an employee. I just smiled and handed them access. Same thing happened a few months later. Where is all the prototype code? It was on my computer since I had no CM access. Did IT back it up before wiping it? We can offer you a raise if you come back. Nope. Click. I still laugh when I think about it.
Where is all the prototype code? I'm sorry I don't work for you. I can contract labor for $350 an hour to figure out where the code is for you if you want. Once they sign the guarantee to pay you, let them know that it should have it on the backup file they made before they wiped your computer. Ha 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 ha. What a great story. Out of all professions, it blows me away how often companies really shoot themselves in the foot by firing critical developers for critical projects without thinking of the implications.
They don't understand software at all. Later in my career I was director of software at a large contracting company and had a VP of engineering who would call developers belly buttons. The implication was that we needed so many belly buttons for TM contracts, all belly buttons were completely interchangeable. Need a firmware developer? He'd say to use the web developer. Need a database designer? Use the junior tester who has written a couple test scripts. They truly think all developers are the same. Slightly diff, but I did audio work for a woman who had her own radio show and she left me hanging one day in the middle of a job. I messaged her a few times to no avail until about 6 months later when she sent me a rude and panicky email saying you had no right to delete all our files from Google Drive, etc. etc. Even though I would never do this on purpose, I panicked and thought maybe I had ducked up. I spent a half hour tracking down the files on an external. I had moved house, only for another message to come through saying I apologize, it was my new hire. Well, duck you for not even having the decency to tell me you got a new hire and just ghosting, and double duck you for freaking out on me for something I didn't do. LOL, freelancing can be fun.
If the new hire really had deleted the files, and you found a backup, were you able to sell it to her for beaucoup bucks?
She never asked for them, so I'm assuming the new hire managed to restore them or had moved them somewhere else. So unfortunately, not LOL.